This is Laugh or Death, hosted by keynote speaker Paul Ozenkup.
My guest today is an actor, a writer, and producer originally from the southern fried countryside of Beaumont, Texas, who went on to get a Master of Fine Arts at the University of Virginia and eventually off to New York, where he began performing in off-Broadway productions. He's co-starred in numerous film and television shows and currently plays the lead role of Eric in The Conspiracists on Amazon Prime. So I'm really happy to have you here. Please welcome my guest, Christopher James Murray.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello out there.
Yeah, appreciate you doing this. So we
Absolutely.
always start. I like to, let our listeners get to know our guests a little bit, and something that probably we don't get to know about people very often is the weird little quirks about them. So, what is something weird about you that you love, or something weird that makes you happy?
Oh, something weird that makes me happy. I've always been a big fan of the ends of bread. It's something growing up that nobody wanted, and my mom's always like, "Don't eat those last." So it was always something that was like I look forward to, just keeping up where the ends of is the bread loaf almost done so I can get the ends of the bread. I don't know what that's about. It's just always been about it.
You like the heel of the bread guy, huh? You and I would be good roommates
Oh yeah,
because I'm always going right past those things, man.
loved him.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, like when I get those heels, like I'll save those to like tear up and like throw in my soup or that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I'm not making
Oh
a
yeah.
sandwich out of that crap.
Yeah, nobody wants them. I've never gotten my mom told me, I don't know if this is true and I've never looked it up, but that they're there to keep the bread fresh. That's why nobody eats them. Like they just you keep moving for them. But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I would assume that all the bread is touching the air. So I don't understand how they're keeping the bread fresh. But I could be wrong.
I'm with your mom, man. I'm like, keep the heels on either side. That way, that next piece in there stays nice and moist and is squishy, so
Yeah.
that I could have that. That's funny. Um, what's so you grew up in Texas and then obviously moved off to the East Coast. Whoa, did you always know, like growing up as a kid, that you wanted to get into acting?
Yeah, I think I discovered that pretty early. I'd say it was around 4th or 5th grade when I got into doing like community theater and shows in the area of Beaumont that I was in. And it stuck with me. I enjoyed the way that it made me feel. I enjoyed, just being the center of attention like any actor. It's like, oh, all eyes are on me. So this is a great feeling. And I think part of the decision was where was I going to go growing up? Like it's always New York or LA at the time. Like now there's so many choices. Like you can go to
Right.
Atlanta, you can go to New Mexico. There's so many places for an actor to pick to like begin their career. Whereas when I was coming, there's only two. There's either New York or LA. That's where the work was. And I actually did go to LA first in the early 2000s, but LA's vibe just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And when I came to the East Coast, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is where I belong."
What was the big difference, I guess, between like the LA New York vibe and also coming from the South, like coming from Texas and living out east? What are the big differences for you?
I think the biggest differences as far as the environment is just Texas is so wide open. There's so much space, and you never feel like you're in anyone's way. I remember coming to the East Coast, and I constantly felt like I was in the way because things are so tight.
Yeah.
And then you learn that, oh, that's just how it is. They're just personal space is just non-existent here. Like you really got to be on top of somebody to be in their personal space.
Yeah.
And, and just the idea that parking, like the people who've never lived outside of the East Coast don't understand that in Texas, there's so much parking. There's an abundance of parking. You never have to worry about where your car is going to go. Like to tell people like you can't even own a business if you can't provide a parking lot that houses the number of people that can fit inside your business.
It's such a different world, isn't it? Because I'm originally from Colorado. I live in Montana now, but I get to
Mm,
travel a lot for work. So when I go to the East Coast and particularly larger cities, it is just a shock to the system. First of all, you can't see very far. Like
yeah,
it's there's buildings everywhere. So after a few days of it, when I fly home and I get out of the airport back at home, I realize like I can see for miles. But I think in
right.
big cities, yeah, you start to get a little claustrophobic, like everything's right here. And I've never thought about what you said, like feeling like you're kind of in the way. I think
Yeah.
it gives me like childhood trauma of being in the kitchen when my mom's trying to cook and is just like, get out of my way. But I feel like that in cities.
No, it's just really tight, and especially like right now we're going through this. We had a blizzard yesterday, so everyone's got a snow day, and all the kids are moving about. But it just the wintertime here can be tough for a lot of people, just because we're already in this tight space, and now we're forced to stay inside longer. So
Yeah.
that's why I say the best times to live in New York City, in my opinion, are the first, like when spring breaks and when in the holiday season. But when we get back to being able to go outside, like real, like when it's about 60, oh, for a week, this is the nicest city in the world.
Yeah.
You've never run into the nicest people.
Right,
It's
right.
crazy.
And yeah, everybody's getting out of their bunkers, like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, good. So I mean, you've basically then since being a kid have been in some sort of theater production, gone on to do some TV and film and that kind of stuff. What do you love about being part of those projects? What lights you up about
I,
that?
I think it's the collaborative effort. I think it's collaboration, building something together. You had asked what was the difference between LA and here. I think LA is very me focused, and
Mm,
as an actor, I think you have to have a certain level of narcissism to like be like it has to be about you. But in LA, there is very much the collaborative is an afterthought. Was what
yeah.
that's my personal feeling. Whereas on the East Coast, there's so many different types of artists here, and so and this is I also came here when the hyphen thing was big, where everybody was like, you got to be more than just this one thing. What else do you do? And so you get the artistic community is so vibrant. Whereas in
Yeah.
LA, everyone at the time when I was in LA, everyone had their pocket. We're actors, we're artists, we're musicians. Whereas here, it's all just one melting pot, and we're like, how can we all do this one thing together? Like you making a movie, you find a musician who's never had the interest in it, but they're like, oh, but I want to be a part of this. Like, let's see what happens. And so that collaborative effort is what draws me to this medium, and it's how I speak to the world. It's how I want to make the world that I want to see. The only way I know how to do that is through the visual art form, whether
For
that be on
sure. Yeah.
stage or screen. Yeah.
Do you find that difference between the me and the we? Because it seems to me like New York is also there's just more theater there than
Mhm.
LA feels like it's more TV and film focused. But there's just a lot more theater going on in New York, or maybe its bread and butter was built off of that. But I know for me, I do a lot of improv comedy, and the
Mhm.
being in improv, it's all about the we. Like the whole point is to make each other look good as we are also, getting our fix of being the center of attention, like you mentioned
Right.
as well. But do you find that difference in film versus theater acting?
I think with film and theater, from what I have experienced, is that they both require a level of trust. But in theater, they're like you say, the improvisation is there nightly because every night's going to be different. And so we are doing this thing. There's an agreed set of rules, and we're doing this thing every night, but we know every night it's going to be a little different than the night before. Whereas with film, the trust is it has to be complete because you may never meet 100 people that are working on this same project with you. You will never be in the same room with them. You will never interact with them until maybe the night of the premiere, or somewhere down the line, you run into someone on the street. They're like, "Hey, I worked on that movie that you were in, yada, yada. I did this." And it's like, "Oh, wow." And that's the first time you're meeting that person. And that is how much trust has to go into it, because once it's out of your hands, there's at least 50 other people that are going to touch it before it's shared with the world. So you have to go in knowing that you just have to give yourself over to it.
Yeah.
It's a very, like, I used to, when I was a younger, when I was more green in this, I always thought, like, you can't compare theater to film because film is easy. You get up there and you're doing the same thing over and over again, just trying to get the take. But I think what I didn't realize was seeing the we of it, because it was a very me focused of like, yes, I'm going to do this take probably 15 times and kind of like maybe a little nuance, but the director's going to find that thing that they like and they're going to say, okay, I want to do that exact thing again and again and again until I feel good about it. But there's still so much. Even the guy who's doing the person who's going to do the color corrections on the film, they're going to be with that moment just as much as I was, by themselves, bringing themselves to it too. So there's a lot of stuff that you just have to trust. Everyone's working toward the best outcome for that. Whereas in theater, you are more privy to seeing what the art designer's doing, what the costume designer's doing, because you're there daily and you're conversing with them. So the trust is there, but you're reassured because you're hearing from this person, this is what I want. Whereas opposed to the production designer in a movie, you'll never meet them. You'll just
Yeah,
get
yeah, that
there
makes a
and be
lot of
like,
sense.
yeah, you'll never
Yeah.
meet them. You just get there and like, this is what it is. So we got to go from here.
And that, I work with a lot of organizations with, typical, whether it's tech companies or hospitals or that kind of stuff. It almost seems like the example you're giving is more relatable to just real world jobs of like, we're all
Right.
working on the same thing, but I may never meet the person who's doing the marketing for the hospital I work in because we're a huge organization or whatever. But there's all these people who have to have some level of trust and buy-in to the mission of what we're doing, and know that like, there's got to be something that's moving us in the right direction. I'm curious. This is a podcast about humor and like how humor drives us in life, what it does for us, that kind of stuff. So when
Mhm.
you've been, you've been in all sorts of different productions, like suspense kind of sci-fi thrillers to Shakespeare to comedy to, doing comedic acting. How do
Mhm.
you get, like, first of all, what's the most difficult of those types of, the different types of roles you've done? And then also, like, how do you get yourself in a mindset for comedy? And then maybe how could that you relate that to just anyone in the real world of like shifting their mindset to just a lighter focus on just everyday life in general?
I've always been from the school of comedy. To me, is really dark. I think that, so when I think of comedians, they are some of the most observant people in the world, and they see the hypocrisy of just us. And they're constantly trying to hold up the mirror of like, look at this thing that we do. That's kind of weird, right? And then we
Yes.
all laugh at it, but it's like, that's actually really dark. And comedians, often when you run into them, they're very morose people. They're nothing like you expect them to be, because they make you laugh and you think, oh, this person's so funny. But it's like, I'm just pointing out this thing. Like, I'm just observing this thing. And it is funny. And it makes us happy because it's the idea of like, we have to laugh to keep from crying.
Right.
And when you look at the mindset of I think that my wheelhouse, if you will, is always to find the humor in no matter what I'm doing. I think of Jack Nicholson. Matt Damon tells that story about Jack Nicholson from The Departed and how he kept the scene going when they were like assassinating that lady in the marsh. And he just kept going and going, and it gets ridiculous and it gets funny because it's like, yeah, because this is ridiculous. Like, this is like, these people are like living on the fringes of society, and they've chosen this life. And we, like, as the quote normal people, like, that's crazy, but that's what
Yeah.
they have signed on to. And when you get certain characters, I think if you can find the humor in their humanity, then you unlock who they are. I think of like Heath Ledger and the Joker from The Dark Knight. We
Right.
love that. We love that character so much because he's funny. Like he's a funny guy because that's his humanity. The scene where Gordon gets the promotion and all the cops are clapping and then the clapping stop and we look and the Joker's still clapping. Something that wasn't scripted. He just did that because it's funny, but that's his humanity. His humanity is, this is all like to him, this is all a joke. He's seen
And
the underbelly of the city. Like,
he was being true to his character. And what you when you first started out, you were talking about like humor for you. It a lot of times comes from a dark place or a sense of like comedians finding out like what really is going on and holding up that mirror. And one of the greatest ways I think to find comedy is don't look for what's funny. Start with what's true. And
yes,
you start
absolutely.
with what's true and you will find humor there. And that's when, yeah, you're right. Comedians, we're a demented group of people. I mean, it's that we find what's wrong in the world or what's true about it and find ways to kind of make it funny. And when you talk about like a character, like really getting into their truth and who they are, and then finding the humor in it, I was thinking about your character, Eric, in The Conspiracists. And so there's a scene. Okay, so the Conspiracists, and feel free to add on to this if you want, but great movie, hilarious movie. I loved it. Very fun.
Thank you so much.
But what's great about it is you're really funny in it, but you are serious as a heart attack. I mean, you are so intense, man, in that movie. But it's hilarious. And there's a scene where you are a conspiracy theorist and you're being interviewed for a documentary. And as you're sitting down, you're so focused, and they've got the boom mic over the top of you, and you're so in your character of like everything's a conspiracy. So you're like, "What's that?" And they're trying to explain to
Right.
you like, "Well, it's just a microphone. You've got a microphone on, I've got a mic. Well, if we've all got microphones, why do we need this? And so there's got to be some grand conspiracy about what they're holding over your head. Tell me about that. Like, how did you make comedy from this character, Eric, who was really like a serious conspiracy guy?
So just doing the research to build a character, trying to get into the mindset of who these people are, going down the rabbit hole of I was on Reddit a lot in preparation for this movie. I was like, let's just go to Reddit and type in conspiracies and just see where that leads. And it just took me down to like some really dark places. Like, oh man, this is wild that people believe stuff like this. But then you start to find some that are like, oh, this seems pretty innocuous, and it doesn't really feel like anyone in this group believes this, but they are more here for a community. They're in search of just belonging. And I'm like, okay, that's what I can attach myself to. That's the piece of humanity that can connect me to these people and build out from there. Like, this is about wanting to be a part of something and feel joined. And for Eric, like working in this movie, Michael Puri, the director, who he also wrote the script, it was great to have this idea of this is like these bullet points we need to hit in order to advance the story, but he gave me and the other actors the freedom to improv in those moments. And so that scene that you see, I think it's maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. That was, I think that one of those takes went for about 25 minutes. It was just me and him talking and just like riffing on anything that was happening in the room. And so for Eric, I'm like, Eric's first thing is to always be suspicious, no matter what it is. He's the kid in the he's the kid in the classroom who keeps asking the teacher why, but why, but why, but why. He's not just going to accept.
We all know that
being
kid.
said.
Yeah.
Right.
Why?
But why?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the starting point with making him who he was. And then just finding that community with his sister, played by Terry Lynn, trying to connect with her in the world because she is quote unquote, she's more normal than you would think Eric is. Eric, you quickly get the sense from Eric, like, oh, something's different about this guy. And let me keep an eye on him. And his sister's more personable. She's more outgoing. She's his tether to the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. And you touch on a smart thing there too about, even in those conspiracy theories on Reddit or whatever, like all of us being just drawn to a sense of community. And that's something that like even our sense of humor, and when we find laughter in groups and stuff, we feel like, so like when a comedian does find humor in a dark thing, even something that's not so dark. I remember there's a great one-liner from I get no respect. Dangerfield.
Oh, Rodney Dangerfield. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my favorite one-liners of his is my parents were happy for 20 years and then they met each other. And that, like that kind of thing really resonates with me as being like a kid from a divorced family, and that it's volatile things and parents fighting and that kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, that resonates. But then it brings us closer to other people who have had similar backgrounds to us. So whether it's with the Conspiracists or other projects you've been a part of, are there some like funny moments, like mishaps, fails, things that you can recall that are like, this is part of like what brings us closer as a team? Are there funny things that have happened throughout your theater or film, music, TV days?
Oh yes, like so I was recently in a show, Welcome to Madison, I did in Orlando, and we were during the rehearsal process, the director had to miss one day. And so when the director's out, the stage manager, our therapist assistant director, will take over the rehearsal. And essentially you're just going through the rehearsal. There won't be much starting and stopping because the director isn't there. You're just trying to hit the beats that have already been set to and see if there are any big road bumps. But you get like, people often feel like, well, since this is kind of like more of a play area, let me just like throw things out there. And one of the women who was playing a character in the show just made a joke. She's like, what would be funny if something else happened here? And we just started riffing on like, well, what could happen at this dinner table that would be funny, because the food wasn't supposed to be good. Like, we don't like the food. How would we express that to the audience in a way that we all collectively get? And we just kept working this one moment for about an hour, trying to like an improv session. What was funny? And finally we got to, what if she just pulled hot sauce out of her purse? And that is like the thing that everyone recognizes. Okay. And you just know in that moment, everyone in the room are like, that's it. And not knowing whether the director, when she came back, whether she would accept this idea. And so you find this moment in play by accident, and the director comes back to the next rehearsal, and we're having this moment on stage, and she's noticing something's a little different. Like, why is a purse a part of this now? Like, why are we bringing a purse in this? And so when the actress pulled the hot sauce out and put it on her food, the director lost it and was like, oh, we're keeping that. It's like those happy accidents that happen that improve a show. And for the run of the show, we ran the show for about 2 months. It was every night. It got the biggest laugh because
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
It's that one thing that and the moment it came out, everyone's like, of course she would have hot sauce in her bag and would put like that. It's perfect.
That's great. So you always got a reaction from the audience, like, because everybody, and even if you don't know that person who's got hot sauce in their bag, the Beyonce line or whatever.
Right.
Whatever
it's ubiquitous. Yeah. It's such a cultural moment. One, because of Beyonce. I just think also being in Florida, which is still, to me, it's weird South, but it's still the South. I think that it resonates with the people.
Yeah.
Because no matter what the demographic of the audience was, it got a huge laugh every night. Like it would either get claps, it would get like hurrahs, but there was always a big laugh because it was like, of course, this is what would happen in this moment.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So you've mentioned a couple times now, like that you've utilized improv, whether in theater or filming, that kind of stuff. Just trying to. What are some of the tenets of improv that you think kind of help you in your personal life, keep perspective, things that like every day, whoever's listening right now could think, okay, maybe I can keep that in mind. That's like a really helpful tool for me to, not freak out so much or to be able to go with the flow, that kind of stuff, because I find improv to be a very helpful skill in life.
I think the biggest thing that you take from improv that will make you, as an actor, I always say it will make you a great actor. But honestly, just as a human being, it forces you to listen, because you have to listen in improv in order to, everyone's like, oh, it's yes and, but you can't say yes to something you don't hear. And often when you see bad improv, it's always because that person isn't listening. They have an idea and they want their idea to be the idea. They're not running with what's already on the table. And often I think in improv, if you are an actor and you think you have an idea and someone beats you out, they come out first and they establish what it's going to be. If you listen long enough, they're going to give you the window to bring the idea that you had to the table as well.
Right.
Like, and so it's about listening. And in life too, as I've gotten older, I've noticed myself becoming a much better listener. Often realizing in my youth, in my 20s, I didn't listen well enough. Like, oh, I didn't listen. I didn't hear that. I'm not hearing that person. And when you do, that's the one thing that improv teaches, that I think in everyday life, if you do more, it just opens the world to you. You hear, like, it keeps you safe. It provides opportunity, like just listening. And also I think we hear this often, is like the trope about, like, you'll have the couple and the woman says to the man, yeah, but you're not listening to me. And it's like, yeah, you hear me, but you're not listening to me. And so this idea of listening to receive information, it expands your mind in a way I can't explain. But when you start doing it more, your mind sends you like endorphins, like, oh, this thing, like, I feel good about doing this. I need to do this more. I need to really listen to what's happening, what people are saying, what's going on around me.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And, anytime you bring up improv with people who don't know much about it, or like if I go and do a training in a corporate setting or whatever and ask people, like, what do you know about maybe some of the rules of improv? You're right. The first thing people say is yes and. But I love what you said about you can't yes and something you didn't hear or listen to.
Yeah.
That is so right on. That and a lot of times, at least for me, especially early on in my career, it was almost like a control thing. Like I feel like whether it's in improv or just in a conversation with people or in a work setting, I feel like I want to have control over where this conversation or this scene or this moment is going to go. And so if I'm hanging on to that idea, or I have an idea of what I'm going to say next, I can still control it. But the more I listen, the more I don't know where this conversation's going to go. I don't know where we're going to end up. And so there's got to be a feeling of like getting to a point where you're just kind of okay going with the flow and being in the moment of like, I'm listening and I have no idea where we're going to end up going in this moment in life, in this scene of our lives. Like, I don't know what that person's going to say or how I'm going to respond next because I haven't heard it yet. And that's an uncomfortable thing. I think, like, I'm a control freak. So it's like, I just want to know the next thing that we're going to talk about or we're going to say. I have 3 bullet points I wanted to get to, and it's like, we can't always do that, especially when we're actually really listening to someone. And I imagine in acting, you have that quite a bit.
Yeah, it is. I think as an actor, you're preparing for something. You want to come in with an idea. Your job is to come in with an idea. And also I think, if to pass along to young actors, to understand who you are in the situation. If your name is 5th on the call sheet, that means there's 4 other actors that have precedent over you, and understand where they are in the scene. Like, this is about this character. This movie is about this person. It's about this character. I am here to be of service for them, not to show the world what I can do. Show the world what you can do while being in service to what they're trying to accomplish. Like, acting coach of mine, Richard Warner, he was in Lincoln and he was doing a scene. I forget the actor's name off the top of my head. He's a pretty big character actor, but he comes in, the guy's never met him before. And the first thing he said to him was like, how can I be of service to you in the scene? And immediately the guy was at ease. He's like, oh, okay, this guy gets it. Cause he works with actors all the time who come in who are like, this is my big moment. I'm in a huge studio film. I've got to bring it. Whereas really it's like, you're just a guy who's working behind the counter at a gas station. there's no big moment there. Like, we've been in those moments all the time. It's like, can I get 5 on pump 12 and I'm buying this Coke and that's it. Like, so just be of service to the actor in that moment, because the moment is not about the gas station clerk. It's about what's going to happen to this person when they walk out of the gas station. But we need to get this setup moment on screen to establish for the audience where you are. And I think having an idea is important, because you never know if there's not gonna be something alive in the moment. But understanding that your first job is to be at service for the scene that's already there, and understanding who you are in the scene.
Oh, I absolutely love that. You're right. And that's, I mean, it's really good for just anything in life, whether it's like, is this my moment or is this our moment? And
Right.
can I play a role to help somebody else exceed expectations or look good in that moment? And that's so much about like what improv and comedy does for anybody who, it's like, I'm trying to, we're giving a presentation or in a meeting or whatever that is. It's like, is this really moment about you being funny, or is there a way that you could support this moment to be even better,
Yeah.
rather than trying to kind of take over and do that? I was talking with someone else one time, and we were talking about being introduced as a speaker, and speaking on humor. The event planner who is introducing me, it feels like they always feel like, oh well, great, now I have to be funny because I'm introducing this humor speaker, and so they're trying to like take this moment and make it funny and be something they're not, and it never works well, and I'm like, no, just don't worry about it, just so, and then I start providing, like, just read this and just take the pressure off yourself.
Right.
I'll help you look good, and we'll just kind of go from there. Yeah, it's such a good point. So in this context of the Laugh or Death podcast, one of the tenets, so one of the things I truly believe is that humor helps us get through some of the most difficult times in our lives. It shows up at times that are like least expected, and kind of maybe helps us reframe. Can you think of a moment in your life when humor helped you get through a difficult time, or showed up in ways that you were not expecting?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the part of the reason that I have dedicated my life to this visual medium, like, I think of myself as maybe a filmmaker first and then theater second now, from where I am in my life, because I realized what brought me into theater was film. Like, seeing movies and thinking about when I'm going through hard times or I'm having a rough patch, I watch movies to, and just like, it's my medicine. It's what helps me feel better. And I think with humor is the thing that you realize in that moment when you're connecting with something and you're like, man, like, that's what I'm going through right now. And then there's a moment of levity within that, in that you're like, oh, right. There is, like, this is a funny situation if you think about it. Like, we are, yeah, we are trapped on the side of this mountain. It's like, it's kind of silly that we thought we'd be able to get up here, with
Sure.
a 2-wheel drive vehicle. What were we thinking? But why I have come into this part, why I've dedicated my life to being a part of sharing stories with people, because I want to be that person who brings joy into someone's life in a dark time.
Yeah.
If you think like Jim Carrey, I think is one of the most serious people we will never fully understand. I've come to realize, like, there's something about Jim Carrey we don't get, and he knows we don't get it, and so he's given up on trying to explain it to us. He's like, they turn to me to laugh, and I will play their clown, and then he just kind of wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
And when you think of Jim Carrey movies, there's so much joy he's brought, so much like stomach belly laughters this man has given me. But then when I look at him when he's himself and he's having an interview where he's being real, I'm like, man, Jim Carrey is kind of a really dark person. And
Absolutely.
so I think that he, like me, I wouldn't say I'm a dark person, but I think that he came into this because it gave him joy in a younger age of his life. And so he went into this and he found fame and fortune from it, like, which is something that he is admitted that he wanted. And I think that now that he's achieved that thing, he's kind of like, what's left? Well, I guess what's left is just to bring these people joy. because he's kind of locked in. I hate to say it that way, but he's kind of locked in. Like, he does interviews on the red carpet, and he's like, "Oh, this is all meaningless. None of this matters. None of this
Exactly.
matters."
Well, one of my favorite Jim Carrey moments. I'm so glad you brought him up, because sometimes people ask me like, who's your favorite actor, comedian, and I'm like, one of the best just actors, comedy, whatever, of our time is Jim Carrey. He's so
Yeah.
versatile, from slapstick to drama. But I remember when he won a Golden Globe Award for playing Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon. And he played the role of a man who died of cancer. And but he won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical. And he just got up there and was like, "Hey, thanks. I thought I did a drama, but thanks anyway." And left, because he's like, I was playing a comedian, yes, but this was a very touching role and movie. So you're right, man. Like
Yeah.
even when we are being funny or bringing joy to other people or finding humor in life, there's a mixture of all of those emotions. And I think the thing that you were touching on with like you and Jim Carrey that strikes me is like, you guys are both really intense about your craft. Like, you care a lot about what you do and what you're putting out there to the world, which I think is pretty cool and pretty admirable.
Yeah, it is. I think of my purpose is like, just to life is hard. Life is hard, I feel. And I think that what movies provide, what all things provide. I think it was yesterday was watching football. It's just like, it's a pastime for
Yeah.
2 hours, for 90 minutes. It's an escape from whatever the truth is. And you can come to be in this fantasy, or if you want, you can get some people like to watch movies about what they are going through because they want to know that they're not alone. Like, life is
Yes.
hard. Like, this movie was made because somebody's experienced what I'm going through right now. Like, all stories exist because someone's lived it. And it's there to help us escape, help us cope, and just give us something to take our minds off of the reality for just a bit of time. And when you can bring that to people in a way that makes them feel good, they love you for it. And that's why we actors are movie stars. So you have actors like they become these huge stars because they've given people memories. They've given people a childhood. I walked out of the last Harry Potter movie, when that was, a decade ago or so. I was a teacher at a theater camp for children. And one of the teachers who was at that camp, she was in her early 20s. She just graduated from college. She was like 21, 22. And we walked out of the theater, and because we'd taken the kids to see it, and she looks to me in tears. She's like, "I feel like my childhood is over." And I was like, "Oh, that's what Harry Potter is for her. That defines that era, that 10 years of her life, reading those books and seeing those movies, that like now she's an adult. Now she has to let that go and go into another age of her life." And I'm like, and so Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, they will always be important to her.
Right.
And she will always go to see the things that they do because they gave her her childhood.
That's amazing. And that's something that we can tap into also, like, to find joy, humor, and that kind of stuff, is like, what kind of things lit us up when we were kids, and tap into
Mhm.
anything that brings out that like childlike nature in ourselves. When you were talking about sitting back watching football, like, I grew up a huge Broncos fan, and
Mhm.
every time I watch football and watch anything, whether it's Instagram reels or whatever about my Broncos, it just brings out that child in me. It's just like a fun escape. I know it's dumb and ridiculous, but it's also like, hey man, this is just exciting for me. And for some people, it's like, I used to play soccer and now I'm on a league with some friends, whatever it is.
And it's that thing that, again, and there you go with community. You find your community that way, which comes full circle back to the Conspiracists. This, like, for fans of a football team, that's their community, that's their church. And it's the thing that they take so seriously. And the Conspiracists, they have these different conspiracy theories, which I would say are like different football teams. And they
Yep.
all ascribe to it, and our theory is realer than yours. And it's that it returns to community. And film and television, again, it's about community. People go to work the next day and they look forward to just hashing it out, talking about Abbott, like what happened on Abbott last night, or talking about Traitors. People love to get together and talk about what happened on the Traitors, like for that little sense of community and that little time where they can get away from the monotony of being at their desk alone, just working. Like we get to go have this little bit of community.
Those seemingly little meaningless moments of joy, like just being able to chat about whether it's the football game or Abbott or, what we did last weekend, and having that is the meaning of life. Those little moments of joy that we just pack to the day, and that we can just enjoy each other, whatever that community is, whatever lights us up. So tell me, what your favorite moment on the set of The Conspiracists? Like,
my favorite moment on the set for me, just because this is like the biggest like opportunity I've had, like, role wise. Usually, I'm just a supporting character. I'll have a line or so here, but like so much was on my plate for this one. So I think after shooting that first scene the first day, and just like looking at the crew and looking at like the other actors, like it's just the idea of like, do you guys think I'm doing a good job? Is this good? Am I doing good? Which is so funny because I have a friend who works as a grip, and he's like, we're never worried about what you guys are doing. He's like, don't ever worry don't ever worry about no one wearing black. I call them the people who wear black because usually all the crew people are in black.
Right.
No one wearing black is worried about what you're doing as an actor. They could care less. They just want to make sure you get it done so we can get out of here. They just want to move on to the next shot.
He's like, I'm just worried about my sound levels right now, okay? Like, you just,
Right. Yeah, the sound guys, they've got their own world that they're concerned. Like, no one's worried about you as an actor. And I think him saying that to me was like, oh, that's so freeing. Because I've always felt like, oh man, they're just judging us. They were like, they're gonna tell us if we're doing bad. No, they don't. They don't care. They're just like,
I like that the thought of that imposter syndrome in your head is almost like your character having a conspiracy, like you're so deep into your character that then you're there on set going, what if they set this whole thing up and, the joke's on me, and I'm not, like, what if I'm not doing a good job and they know it? And then, it's like this whole conspiracy, like this whole thing is just set up.
It's that moment of joy that realizing that voice in your head is crazy. And why is it there? Because you shoot, and then you get to lunchtime, and I remember being at lunch and sitting with the other actors, and we're just talking. No one's talking about the work. We're talking about life. So it's just like, oh, this is what we do. Like, this is our moment at the water cooler to talk about the football game because the work is what we do. Nobody wants to talk about that right now. And the idea that like, oh, I'm here because they want me to be here. Like, I would not be here if they didn't want. Yeah, like when you get that, I would say that after shooting that first scene, I was like, oh, okay, like, yeah, this is gonna be fine. What was I thinking? Like, what, like, and then leaning in and just going for it and trusting that if it is quote unquote bad, we're just gonna do it again. Right. The director says, like, I didn't really like that. Let's try. Can you give me something else? Like, give it to me a different way. It's like, oh, that's right. We are not in front of an audience. We're just gonna shoot it again. Okay, sure, let's do it.
Well, it was awesome, man. And you really stuck out to me in that movie. You were a lot of fun. Your character was so intense, but I really admired how you made us really, really like Eric, and not see him as some like weird conspiracist, but more like a lovable guy who's just searching for what is, for that community and what's important to him. So for anyone listening, man, it's a fun movie, a funny movie, really kind of joyous movie.
It is.
And so, check it out on Amazon Prime, The Conspiracists. Anything else you want to say about it, or where else we can find you?
You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on TikTok for however long that lasts. I don't know what's going on with TikTok right now.
Man.
But like TikTok has become a place where it's like, don't post anything right now. Don't post anything. But just Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And I'm doing a show in Philly this summer. So if you happen to find yourself in Philadelphia, I'm doing the piano lesson with James Imes out there. I hope to keep bringing people joy through cinema. That's
Oh, man.
the big thing.
You're doing it. You're doing it. Yeah, you made me laugh a lot of times during that movie. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Laugh or Death with Paul Ozencup. If you're planning a conference or event and want something smart, meaningful, and actually funny, book Paul to speak. To learn more or to get a copy of his book, The Humor Habit, visit laughordeath.com.